Ferrari, oh my, I'm as painful as it is being a Red Bull fan at the minute. I am so glad I'm not a Ferrari fan because the trials and tribulations of following Maranello, my word, I don't think my blood pressure could take it. And yeah, I think Hamilton is having the true Tifosi experience. His second or third race weekend into the season, he gets sprint pole and wins a sprint race for Ferrari in China. No, it was the second race because Liam Lawson was still a Red Bull driver. Remember those days? Pepperidge Farm, remember? And Hamilton, still won that weekend, and I remember watching that. I stayed up to watch it 3 a.m. in the UK. I think China should be a night race, and it was, it felt like we were watching Hamilton of a few years ago when, yes, he put it on pole and led from the start and all the rest of it. And I know it's only a sprint and blah blah blah, but that still doesn't diminish that he has the skill to lead a pack like that. And he still led the field from Max, who is the most successful sprint race winner. Not that I think Max really cares about that, to be honest. I'm sorry, I'm talking about him a lot when I shouldn't be. But Hamilton has had some of those highs, and then to go from that into the lows of having that double DSQ in China and his radio, I'm not going to call it a meltdown, that's not fair, but his radio outburst where he was understandably, and I'd say justifiably, very annoyed at the team in Miami, where he came out with some really sarky comments. I actually really like that because I'm, a few people who know me will know, you two will know that I'm quite petty and quite sarcastic. Really? No. And that spoke to my soul a bit, hearing him sort of like be very very, very sort of like, ooh, cat claws coming out kind of thing. So he's had the sort of full Ferrari experience already. It's taken him a little while to adjust to that car. And, he spent so long in that Mercedes team. He spent so long in McLaren. Before that, he's always driven Mercedes power units. Yes, obviously he went from the V8 to the turbo hybrid V6s. But my point is he's always been in the wider Mercedes family. And he's moved to something completely different. New team, new power unit, new race engineer who he seems to have a on and off relationship with. I think is one way of putting it. New, and not just the new sporting stuff, the new culture, everything. Because obviously the Ferrari culture is very different to certainly how McLaren would have done, probably to how Mercedes do it. We all know what the McLaren days were like when Ron Dennis was there, and we know like how efficient of a ship Mercedes is run under Toto, even if they're not quite there at the minute. So it's been a huge change of scenery for him, and also he is in his 40s. Let's not forget that. I think he's 41, or he might be 40. I can't remember. I know he's in his 40s. So again, he's no spring chicken. Sorry, Tom. And he's got a lot of pressure on him because he is statistically the most successful driver we've ever had, and there is no doubt he is one of the best drivers we've ever seen. And Hamilton in his prime was something else, especially that like early Mercedes era. Man, he was so, I'm not a fan, but he was so good. And I think people who thought they were going to get that Lewis at Ferrari, they might have had their expectations a little bit too high because he is on that natural decline, as we sort of just talked about with Alonso at Aston. These chaps are getting on a bit. And the other thing with Ferrari is they've got the golden boy there. Leclerc, who has obviously been sort of nurtured through the whole academy, was put in that Sauber in 2018 alongside Marcus Ericsson, a real test of a teammate, that one. And then obviously, sort of put into the seat in 2019, won a few races in that slightly dubious car in his first year, and has sort of been the next thing for Ferrari, essentially. He's come through the academy, and, he's been sort of like earmarked as, well, the next best thing for that team. And it's almost good in a way that Ferrari aren't in a championship winning position, because if they had to pick between the two drivers, who would they pick? I still think they'd pick Leclerc. Leclerc has been statistically the better driver this year, but I think that's also due to Leclerc being more comfortable in that car. He's been in the Ferrari family for, well, God knows how long now. He's obviously been in the main team since 2019, and Hamilton is a new person coming in. So we saw Hamilton be really hard on himself after Hungary, where he was like, "Oh, they just need to change." Is that no? They don't. I said, you're fine. The car isn't great. Hungary is a tough circuit, and if you don't have a compliant chassis and a compliant setup, you are just going to understeer and wallow and wash everywhere, and that's exactly what happened.